While the stags slowly died out as they waited for a bell to be rung to signal the return of the passengers, there were some.
With YouTube Music Premium, listen ad-free, offline, and in the background. Plus, download podcasts for on-the-go listening. Try 1 month free.
They waited for a bell to be rung to signal the return of the passengers. There were some who survived the infection. The nailsmith who had set up his workshop just outside of the City of Tears had, in a way, attained a sort of pure focus as he spent his attention on the forging of a pure nail, a goal he would continue to attempt. The ultimate nailmaster Sly hung up his nail and set up a store in Dirtmouth. He realized that the collection of Geo was more important than combat. To get more of it, he sold the treasures and charms of the fallen kingdom to those who passed by. His students also moved across Hallownest. Oro relocated to Kingdom's Edge. Matto moved to the Howling Cliffs, and Shio made Greenpath his home and pursued art. For the few who remained of the Moth tribe, they prophesied someone that would wield a dream nail and collect all of the essence and memories of Hallownest, the wielder. Yet this chosen one never arrived, and the tribe slowly died off until only a single seer remained to tend to the resting wounds alone. The King's Pass had once allowed those who travelled through the Howling Cliffs access to Dirtmouth and the Greater Kingdom. Over time and without maintenance, the connecting bridge collapsed. Dirtmouth slowly faded away as the residents within and the few who passed through entered the well into the forgotten crossroads of the kingdom below. They sought wealth, glory, and adventure, but only few returned. The City of Tears had become a shell of its former self, but it was not completely dead. The Tower of Love was home to something interesting. A void being named the Collector. The origin of this entity is shrouded mostly in mystery. Why was it called the Collector? Well, it collected objects and, most notably, the grubs of Hallownest and placed them inside of glass jars to preserve or protect them. On a more interesting note, the key to its home in the Tower of Love was later discovered on the body of a bug that had died. This was not a normal death. It appeared that Void had destroyed this bug from the inside as streams of the substance fell like tears from its face. In the bug's dying moments, it had thought, too long spent together, we become as one. The Void entity and the bug had some sort of relationship, but what it truly meant is unknown. Deep underground in the abyss, the Void called out to the Lightkeeper appointed by the Pale King. It called to him to turn off the lights. Within the White Palace, the Pale King also passed away. It is unknown how this occurred, but his followers inside this dream realm still awaited his return. Hallownest was home to a long history of chaos and ruin. This fallen kingdom, however, was just one of many. The population of the Land of Storms had once worshipped the gods of thunder and the gods of rain. Their gods had either abandoned them or died. They sought out the gods and they went out into the wasteland to find more. The Godseekers had a mask that allowed them to focus their thoughts. In doing so, they created an entire world with a shared mind in the dream realm, Godhood. Inside, they hoped to elevate and eventually attune their minds to commune with the gods of the world with a Godseeker device through ritual combat. On their journey, a God-seeker picked up what lingered of the power of the Pale King, and it arrived in Hallownest, unaware that he had moved on. However, upon the God-seeker's arrival, it was locked inside of a cocoon and dropped into the drum pit of the royal waterways. How and why this happened is unknown. Yet, while trapped physically, the God-seekers lived comfortably within Godhope.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and the YouTube Music app all together. Uninterrupted videos and an app made just for music. YouTube Premium, one subscription, two apps. Try 113.
The kingdom of Hallownest had essentially become a giant graveyard. Spirits of warriors waited for explorers to pass by them, yet some parts of the kingdom were alive. The strongest fighters across the land traveled towards Hallownest to compete in the Colosseum of Fools. Every one of them attempted to become the champion of the Colosseum. Despite their dreams of greatness, many died during their trials, and their corpses were dropped into the chasm below. Even after the Lord Fool's death, the fighting continued. As the ages passed, many who dreamt of greatness took on the God team. Two new fighters were Tiso and the Little Fool. In the fading town of Drip555, the retired nailmaster Sly fell into a dream and began to wander the forgotten crossroads, a world he had left behind long before. This was interesting. It was as if something deep within Hallownest had brought it back to life, and with it, new travelers made their way towards the kingdom. The oldest resident of the town, Elderbrook, had grown up in an age after the closure of the stag stations and fall of the world below. Still, he knew of the dangers in the well, dangers that had claimed so many that had entered and never returned. Within the City of Tears, a relic collector set to restore away from the dead. Lem was fascinated by the historical artifacts of Hallownest during its golden age. He was also intrigued by the arcane eggs of the civilization that had occupied the land before the kingdom of Hallownest had even formed. As Hornet traversed across this fallen kingdom to protect her mother and father's ruins from scavengers, she also sensed something in the air. A new wave of the infection that reanimated the bodies of the fallen into aggressive husks. Hornet was mostly alone after the Weavers of Deepnest left Hallownest to return to their homeland, after they also sensed the return of the infection. From the Howling Cliffs to the Black Egg Temple to the cast-off shell of the Pale King's original worm form as the kingdom's edge, Hornet watched as the kingdom was filled with dangers. These bugs simply wandered the region in which they had passed away. They retained their muscle memory of their roles during the kingdom's heyday, but the infection also clouded their minds and made them aggressive upon even a simple interaction. The miners of Crystal Peak mined, the guards protected the streets, and husks wandered the forgotten crossroads, all in the Radiance's haze. Still, those of sound mind and new arrivals delved into these ruins as the infection brought it back to life. In a deserted village, there was one mender who had survived the entire infection, and he kept working. When he discovered a broken sign, he fixed it. As he worked, he wrote of his accomplishments in his diary. To the east of his village, another bug ran a charm school. Salubra appeared to be completely unaware that the kingdom had fallen. She thought maybe business had just gotten a little quiet lately. Amongst those who sought glory, Zote the Mighty arrived in Hallownest. This place reminded him of home. Zote believed names had power. That was why he had called his nail the Life Ender. Yet, Zote's image of himself as a mighty warrior was not the case. He struggled against the most basic of foes as he wandered the caverns. married couple, Cornifer and his wife, Iselda, also arrived in Hallownest. Cornifer wanted to explore the world, and he did as he took on the task to map the kingdom, as his wife set up a store in Dirtmouth. Within Fog Canyon, an explorer also discovered a great way to earn geo from the passing adventurers. Millabelle knew bugs and how to manipulate them. In this safer region of the infected jellyfish inhabited misty caverns of Hallownest, Millabelle set up a bank to store the geo of those who wanted to protect their wealth. But all was not what it seemed. Millabelle planned to run away with all the geo she managed to extract from her marks. In the neighbouring region of the fungal wastes, Legeater either lived there or moved there to set up his own charm store. Legeater was blind but had an amazing sense of smell. He believed that if he earned enough geo, he would become a king. It was here the bug created charms, but how he did this is unknown. On a quest of bravery, a cicada warrior sought to challenge Hallownest's mighty, terrifying beasts. Cloth had the best intention to die in an intense, climactic battle with her club so that she could be reunited with Nola, her partner who had passed away. But the creatures of Hallownest scared her, and sometimes she hid. Hallownest was alive once again with new adventurers, explorers, and the husks of the departed. Within the Temple of the Black Egg, the Hollow Knight grew weaker and the Radiance's influence on the land grew stronger. Hallownest, however, was still protected by the seal of the Druids. Many of the vessels that had escaped their fate at the bottom of the abyss had explored the ruins of Hallownest. Many had been lured and brutally killed by the terrifying, shape-shifting Nosk of Deepnest. There was also another vessel who had returned to Hallownest after it had heard a call. As of now, it is unknown what called it, the Radiance or the Hollow Knights. Regardless, this vessel of the night traversed King's Pass and arrived in Dirtmouth. It met Elderbug and was told of the Grand Kingdom below, a kingdom that had become a myth. On its path, the knight encountered Cornifer as he mapped out the Forgotten Crossroads. It fought with the false knight that wore Hegemal's armor. After it met a snail shaman, it learned how to focus soul into powerful magical strikes. It even reopened a stag station and discovered what remained of this species that had once allowed Hallownest to thrive. Sadly, this stag was the last of its kind, and over all of these years alone, it had forgotten the location of the stag nest. With its first passenger in ages, it asked the knight to reopen more stations as it travelled across Hallownest and ring the bell in each so that it would hopefully remember the location of its home. Hornet knew of the sacrifice. In the wilds across a vast wasteland lay a region that would one day become home to the Grand or move there to set up his own charm store. Legeater was blind but had an amazing sense of smell. He believed that if he earned enough geo, he would become a king. It was here the bug created charms, but how he did this is unknown. On a quest of bravery, a cicada warrior sought to challenge Hallownest's mighty, terrifying beasts. Cloth had the best intention to die in an intense, climactic battle with her club so that she could be reunited with Nola, her partner who had passed away. But the creatures of Hallownest scared her, and sometimes she hid. Hallownest was alive once again with new adventurers, explorers, and the husks of the departed. Within the Temple of the Black Egg, the Hollow Knight grew weaker and the Radiance's influence on the land grew stronger. Hallownest Many of the vessels that had escaped their fate at the bottom of the abyss had explored the ruins of Hollow Nest. Many had been lured and brutally killed by the terrifying, shape-shifting Nosk of Deep Nest. There was also another vessel who had returned to Hollow Nest after it had heard a call. As of now, it is unknown what called it, the Radiance or the Hollow Knights. Regardless, this vessel, the Knight, traversed King's Pass and arrived in Dirtmouth. It met Elderbug and was told of the Grand Kingdom below, a kingdom that had become a myth. On its path, the Knight encountered Cornifer as he mapped out the Forgotten Crossroads. It fought with the False Knight that wore Hegemon's armor. After it met a Snail Shaman, it learned how to focus soul into powerful magical strikes. It even reopened a stag station and discovered what remained of this species that had once allowed Hollow Nest to thrive. Sadly, this stag was the last of its kind, and over all of these years alone, it had forgotten the location of the stag nest. With its first passenger in ages, it asked the Knight to reopen more stations as it travelled across Hollow Nest and ring the bell in each so that it would hopefully remember the location of its home. Hornet knew of the sacrifice the Dreamers had made. She also watched from afar as this vessel explored her kingdom. On a trip to the Howling Cliffs, Hornet encountered Quirrell. He too had felt the call of Hollow Nest in his dreams. Dreams of winding roads, misted caverns, drowning cities, and a door with something that called to him just beyond. Hornet saw Quirrell as just another explorer that had come to desecrate her kingdom. In a short battle, Hornet noticed that the mask Quirrell wore was important. Something had called him here. With the belief his journey into Hollow Nest was significant, the warrior of Deep Nest returned to her kingdom to watch over the Knights, or as she called it, Little Ghost. In Green Path, Hornet looked over the body of a dead vessel, but she was interrupted by the Knight. She warned it to come no closer, that she had seen it as it had crept through the undergrowth, and that she knew why it had come to Hollow Nest. She would not allow it to break the Dreamer's seals. Despite Hornet's amazing ability to wield a needle and threat, the Knight defeated her in combat. As Hornet fled, the Knight picked up the Mothwing cloak from the body of the vessel. This would be just one of the many items and upgrades the vessel would acquire on its path. The Dreamers had watched from the Dream Realm as the plan to save Hollow Nest had essentially failed. Over these ages, they had watched its fall as explorers had come and gone. However, they were curious about the arrival of this vessel. From their realm, Lurian the Watcher, Monoman the Teacher, and Hera the Beast projected their minds into the physical realm and spoke to the Knight. They asked if it sought to break the seals. Lurian ordered the Knight to stop what it had started and leave them to sleep in peace. Despite their request, the Knight continued on and found its way to a statue of the Dreamers in the resting grounds. To protect the vessel, the Dreamers lay sleeping. Monoman the Teacher in her archive, surrounded by fog and mist. Lurian the Watcher in his spire, looking over the city. Hera the Beast in her den amidst the deep darkness beyond the kingdom. Through their devotion, Hollow Nest lasts eternally. It had been through the Pale King's plan that Hollow Nest had entered a period of stasis.
Tired of compromising on comfort? Discover Split King adjustable bases at Ashley, where both partners win. With independent controls for each side of the bed, you can finally customize your perfect sleep position while your partner enjoys theirs. Elevate your sleep with an adjustable base at Ashley today.
your time. Time to play and win. A truckload of winning is rolling your way with Oak Grove Gaming's Green with Envy Frontier giveaway on July 25th. Win a share of $18,500 free play with drawing starting at 8 p.m. Then at 11 p.m. the excitement revs up when one player drives up in a running new Nissan Frontier. For details, visit oakgrovegaming.com.
It had been through the Pale King's plan that Hallownest had entered a period of stasis. The darkness and stillness of void appeared to perpetuate one long night. The kingdom was still there, but frozen in a state of ruin, eternal. Lurian believed that if the dreamer's seals were broken, the Radiant's light would bring with it dawn, and with it the complete collapse of Hallownest. Lurian wanted Hallownest to remain as it was. He was loyal to his king, and his king wanted Hallownest to last eternal. The Dreamers also did know
When I hit my 50s, I felt like things were slowing down. When I started taking Metamucil for digestion, not only did I feel more regular, but my heart health saw the benefits. Turns out a little daily care goes a long way.
Metamucil. Digestive health starts here.
also probably the first time we have seen this man sober in the entire Succession War. Lazarus doesn't want to give a single excuse to Benjamin to kill him. Meanwhile, Kanjiro gets caught in the act of murdering the staff by Ridge, one of the hunters assigned to Lazarus alongside Basho. Ridge could already tell Kanjiro did not kill in self-defense, so they prepare for a fight. At the same time, in front of Hulkenberg's room, Yoshihi, one of Benjamin's boys and the man responsible for 8th Prince Salisale's death, prepares to add another one to the list. Any sudden response inside Hulkenberg's room will be taken as a sign of treason. Yoshihi's Nen ability, Stand By Me, produces a stinger ball that attaches itself to the target and kills anyone who moves 20 meters away from the user. This Hatsu comes with drawbacks though. The stinger ball makes a buzzing noise only Nen users can hear, which is good for identifying targets who can use Nen, but it also means the stinger ball can easily be removed and Yoshihi can never use this ability on the same target again. This makes his ability terrible in battle against Nen users, but Yoshihi grants his ability to Chomashi through the latter's Nen ability, King of Men, a manipulation type semi-compulsory Hatsu where he grants the volunteer invincibility for the period of time Chomashi has touched them, but in exchange, once the ability is dispelled, the user enters a forced Zetsu state for 100 times the duration of the invincibility period, and after the Zetsu ends, the user suffers 1/3 of the total damage negated by the shield as recoil from the user's aura. And this ability does not negate the damage of mutual cooperation type attacks where multiple Nen users collaborate. In short, an ultimate shield given to someone else that steals away your Hatsu for a long time after its use and could possibly kill you with just 1 fraction of the damage you take. Their mission is to take down 9th Prince Hulkenberg, who Benjamin knows is in the body of his former right-hand man, Masumilko, through Hulkenberg's body-swapping Nen ability. However, this chapter, we aren't going to be focusing on that, as we jump back to Kurapika and the 14th Prince Wobble's room, where the last time we were here, we learned that the Prince Wobble Kurapika has been protecting for the past 14 days is a fake, as the child is actually Queen Oito's nephew. The real Wobble did give his blood to the Seed Urn to join the Succession War to start the contest, but now no one knows where Wobble is, not even his own mother. That's why fake Wobble hasn't produced a Nen beast like the other princes this whole time. What is interesting is that one of the restrictions of the Succession War is that none of the princes can see each other's guardian spirit beast or their own, even if they are Nen users. It's almost like that restriction was designed by Togashi with baby switches like Wobble's in mind. However, Kurapika has a new problem now. He needs to protect 2 babies now, since when he accepted
They say higher education is outdated, irrelevant, but at Grand Canyon University, we shatter the status quo. GCU's bachelor's, master's, and doctoral education degree programs combine coursework with observational education.
GCU gives you hands-on experience so you can learn to lead your classroom with heart, faith, and purpose.
This is purpose-driven education. Take action. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Visit gcu.edu.
accepted the job at the hotel, he pledged to protect the real Wobble. Beyond Netaro's kids are all over the Kakin army, and they all have Nen curses programmed to kill the Kakin princes, except the secret prince child of Beyond Netaro himself, who is likely 4th Prince Aradnik. And since Kurapika has no info on these curses, it's possible that even from far away, Wobble would still be in danger. And according to Nen exorcists, Beyond Netaro's Nen curse is the most powerful one in existence that not even the best Nen exorcists can move. Furthermore, the maid Shimaru is used by Togashi brilliantly to highlight the dilemma Kurapika went through as well. Kurapika did accept the job because he wanted to get Saradnik's scarlet eyes, but he also felt sympathy for the real Wobble. He wanted to protect an innocent baby from becoming a victim of a Nen death battle royale. But the baby he spent 2 weeks with was an imposter. This wouldn't change Kurapika's commitment to him a bit though. Both Wobbles are victims of Kakin's politics, so his choice of love over revenge has not been subverted. However, Shimaru the maid knew about the two babies the moment she arrived on the Black Whale, when she began changing the baby's diaper, that she was caring for a boy, not a girl. But like Kurapika, when he first took the job, Shimaru stared at the baby and realized it did not matter. The mission was still the same, and the same goes for Kurapika. So, Kurapika presents two critical problems to Queen Oito, beyond Netado's curse and the location of the real 14th Prince Wobble. If the condition for becoming a target of Beyond's curse is official participation in the succession contest, the real 14th Prince is safe. However, if the condition is having undergone the seed urn ceremony, there is a possibility that the prince is a target despite not participating. Kurapika has also detected Nen fluctuations all over the room, meaning the curse might be targeting the fake Wobble instead of the real one. Kurapika also considers using Stealth Dolphin ability, but if Kurapika fails to meet the activation requirements, he will die. Bill suggests negotiating with Beyond Netero, which is sus since Beyond is actually Bill's secret boss. Now they could offer Beyond temporary amnesty or the removal of his restraints, but this presents a whole plethora of other issues. Yep, this whole chapter, like every time Kurapika shows up, it's like one problem is introduced and the problem has like two different solutions, but then the two different solutions have two different problems to be solved, and then those solutions have like a whole tree of problems and solutions. Bro, what is Hunter x Hunter even about now? Like this chapter has like over 3,000 words. Like just write a novel at this rate, Togashi. What are these pages? Do you guys see these pages? Anyway, I'm breaking down everything for you guys, okay? Okay, let's get to the issues with allying themselves with Beyond. First of all, Beyond doesn't care about freedom and will only make a move once he has reached the Dark Continent. Second, the Hunters are obligated to follow the late chairman Isaac Netero's final will to not let his son reach the Dark Continent. Third, even if Beyond would agree to negotiate, he would clearly set a trap for Kurapika, because at the end of the day, Beyond wants that seed urn Nen. After being reminded of Beyond's daughter, Longhee, Bill suggests that using contract Nen abilities to gain information without much risk by casually slipping a clause about Nen abilities or putting up a penalty for breaking the contract. Kurapika asks Bill why he would go so far for this gamble, especially as Beyond's man. Well, you see, Bill originally chose to guard the 14th Prince Wobble because he was a coward who wanted to avoid all the bloodshed from the succession war. However, Beyond Netero's plan was too gross for him to follow. Beyond is willing to use his own kids as walking time bombs just to reach the Dark Continent, and he was also moved by Kurapika's selfless commitment to this dangerous mission. So Bill declares he will no longer be Beyond's pawn and wants to end the succession war. They also have the support of the Hunter Association, who do not want this death game to keep on going, so they can work together to weaken the Kaki monarchy and go for regime change. They can even get the V5 nations approval to free Beyond Netero by telling them about their mission to save the princes who were kept hostage by Beyond Netero's curse. Look.
I want to use my voice for things that matter, like menopause. Women deserve to know that there are treatment options for moderate to severe hot flashes, like Lincare. Linquet is a hormone-free treatment for moderate to severe hot flashes due to menopause. It reduces the number and severity of hot flashes day and night, with some women having fewer hot flashes as early as 1 week.
So, enjoy the celebrations, own the room, and be in the moment with fewer hot flashes.
Don't use Linquet if you're pregnant, as it can cause loss of pregnancy. Tell your doctor if you have liver problems, a history of seizures, are pregnant or planning to become pregnant. It can cause serious side effects like central nervous system effects and daytime impairment, like difficulty staying awake, fatigue, a spinning feeling, dizziness, or feeling faint. Don't drive or do hazardous activities until they pass. Increased liver blood test values may occur. Your doctor will check them before and during treatment. There's a risk of seizures in people with a history of seizures. Seek medical help for loss of consciousness or seizure. Most common side effects include headache, fatigue, dizziness, and sleepiness. These aren't all the possible side effects.
Our lives don't stop for hot flashes, so don't let hot flashes stop you. For moderate to severe hot flashes, why sweat it? Linquet it.
Ask your provider about Linquet.
Thank you.
Curse. Looks like we have a solution for problem 1 with this. But problem 2 is Wobble's location, which is a big one because Oito doesn't know where her son is, and for good reason. By not knowing where the real 14th prince is, it protects her daughter from danger. However, this is an issue now because Oito's family needs to know about Beyond Metodo's curse or any other assassins in their vicinity with these freaky Nen powers. Kurapika has checked the passenger data and confirms that no infant like the real 14th prince is on board, but this is not 100% proof that Wobble is not on the Black Whale. Also, the higher ranked princes like Benjamin and Camilla need to find the real 14th prince to be sure of their victory. This means that the longer the war drags on, the more of a target the 14th prince becomes. And even if the baby is off the ship, there's still the issue of Beyond Metodo's curse. So Kurapika has 2 ideas to solve both problems. Identify the mechanics of Beyond's curse and identify Beyond Metodo's baby assigned to the 14th prince, or locate the real 14th prince, protect her, and get an exorcist to remove the curse. Kurapika goes for the first solution, but at the same time, he will also ask the Hunter Association to secretly locate the real 14th prince. This will also help fulfill Longhi's contract, which, when fulfilled, will give Kurapika a power boost that could give him the edge in the confrontation against Beyond Metodo and his prince baby. Finally, Kurapika asks Oito for a way to contact the real Wobble in case of an emergency. Now, Oito had every reason to keep her secrets and support 9th Prince Hulkenberg, but now that Hulkenberg is dead, at least from her perspective, and Beyond Metodo's curse is a real risk to the real Wobble, Kurapika assures her that while there might be some distrustful people in the Hunter Association, he has friends he trusts more than himself. And we get the king of all comebacks with the final page. Gon and Killua on their respective journeys. The first time since 2014, the goats are back. Yep, it's been that long. I was still in like 8th grade. I remember talking about this with my friend like over 10 years ago, man. Killua was last seen in chapter 339 on his worldwide trip with his sister. Gon's last appearance was in chapter 345 where bro was studying. But Togashi has made sure that their presence has never been forgotten because they still have pivotal roles to play in the story, especially with those colored illustrations and during chapter releases. Togashi even put Gon in the cover of volume 38, but bro snuck in a lot of clues revealing his plan for Gon and Killua's return. In page 10 of chapter 344, while Kurapika talks to Mizai Storm about dealing with monsters in human skin like Saradnik, it cuts immediately to Gon discovering he cannot produce aura. Gon was a talented Nen user who sacrificed everything to become a monster and destroy Nefertito. Saradnik is an even rarer genius who learned all the Nen basics in a single day and possesses the most evil Nen ever. Behind the scenes, Togashi had been teasing Gon's return, especially while working on chapter 414, this chapter back in 2024. Togashi tweeted an illustration of Gon right as he was drawing this chapter. So this was basically a hint by Togashi all the way back then, like over 2 years ago, that Gon was going to be in this chapter. And similarly, when Togashi began work on chapter 415, 228, last February, we got a drawing of Kite providing the update. But if you look really closely, you can see the outline of Gon's jaw. This could be a big hint that Gon will come back in chapter 428. This time, more involved and maybe even jump-starting his Nen comeback. Killua might be more involved with Kurapika's mission at first though, as he is traveling with Aluka and Dill is a monster hunter. Killua could literally use Aluka, who has one of the 5 Dark Continent threads inside of her, to purge baby Wobo's curse. Even fight against whatever Nen attack the real Wobo, who is likely in the known world. Especially since Oito gives us a way to contact the family by sending a letter through Yamato, the equivalent nation to Japan in Hunter x Hunter. Helping a baby does circumvent the promise Killua made to never use Ai for his selfish wishes and to treat her as a person. There are also ways for the boys to join the Dark Continent expedition, notably through Greed Island speedrun. Just like how in the middle of Greed Island arc, Killua speedran the whole Hunter exam to get his license, he could do the same with Greed Island during the Succession War. Bro has a literal Godspeed. He could yoink all the cards and probably beat Razor and his pirates in a flash. And once he wins Greed Island, he could sneak in an accompany card just like how Gon did, which would teleport him to Biscuit, who is a registered Greed Island player and is present in the Black Widow 1, and thus bringing him and Gon back to the Dark Continent or Black Widow 1 ship to the Succession War. This middle of arc switch to a different mini arc writing style has been employed by Togashi since Greed Island. Even during the Chimera Ant arc, we switched to Meteor City just before the climax to watch the Phantom Troop or among the end. Gon and Killua having their own mini arc right before the climax of the Succession War fits this style, and Kurapika recruiting them to protect Wobo might be what leads to Gon getting closer to unlocking his Nen again. Because remember, in chapter 344, we get a clear answer that Gon cannot create an
Watch hit movies and TV shows on YouTube. Stream House of the Dragon now.
We now have the power no man has ever wielded. And our children will rule forever and a day.
Everything you don't, your concentration's wrong.
Get HBO Max and more streaming channels to watch your favorites on YouTube.
Aura. Even though Jin mentions Gon possesses Nen, he can't see or utilize its power. Every living thing in Hunter x Hunter has aura. The difference is that trained Nen users have opened their aura nodes and learned to manipulate. Gon has that ability restricted in C. Now, I have made a whole dedicated video exploring how Gon will get his Nen back, so I won't go too balls deep into it right now. But once recruited by Kurapika to find Wobo in the known world, Gon and Killua might have to venture to Meteor City, a place where people are forgotten and would be my first guess to hide someone super important. No one would guess that a Kaking prince was being hidden in the worst city. If Gon does appear in chapter 428, which is near the end of the planned second batch of the 2026 chapters, this means we might be seeing one of the most long-awaited matchups in manga history. Gon versus Gyro. In chapter 204 of the Chimera Ant arc, it turns out that Gyro had reincarnated as a Chimera Ant that maintained his free will, and he was in the same town as Gon and Killua were, but they never actually saw each other. The narrator hinted that they are destined to meet in the future. After the Chimera Ant arc, Welfen, one of Gyro's men, who was also made an ant, stated that he might be in Meteor City, the hometown of the Phantom Troop, to gather more villains to make a new nation, with Welfen and Ina, two Chimera Ants, and Bezef, the former Secretary of State and secret leader of East Orpo. Gyro could could potentially replace Khakeen in the mainland or even outright take over Meteor City through sheer force, destroying the legacy of the Phantom Troop and the whole point of Frollo's mission of avenging Sarasa. But even by himself, Gyro could become Gon's final villain in the main story. Even before Saradnik was introduced, we met the most evil man in the entire series, who now has the insane Nen potential of a Chimera Ant and could possibly rival the Ant King Meruem himself. But the thing is that there are only 49 days until the Succession War is over, and I doubt we are ending the arc anytime this year. Either way, Kurapika is gonna find out where the real Prince Wobble is and send Gon and Killua as bodyguard. If you guys want to know more about Gyro or how Gon can get his Nen back, watch the videos on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.
Now at Whataburger, you can get the new Big Ranch Wrap for $3, 5 premium wanted chicken bites for $4, or Bacon Cheese Whataburger Jr. for $5. Add fries and a drink for a little more. Now that's a what a deal at What Up Burger. Download the app.
After the end of the 13th Chairman Selection arc of Hunter x Hunter, Gon is no longer the main character because the arc that follows it has a whole continent be its main protagonist as we enter the Dark Continent Expedition, where it turns out that the Hunter x Hunter world that we know of is actually just a tiny portion of the entire map, with the known world being just a collection of islands inside a giant lake known as Lake Mobius, which itself is inside a larger landmass called the Dark Continent. This land's existence was kept secret from the general public by the V5, which are a coalition of the world's strongest and most influential nations. These guys banned any expeditions to the Dark Continent because of the overwhelming dangers it could pose. As in the past, when humanity has attempted to explore the Dark Continent, almost all of these efforts ended in failure, with only a few survivors like Netero or Killua's great-grandpa. Meaning, that's the level of strength and skill one needs to survive here. Because, you know, the Chimera Ants that almost ended the known world, well, when ranked amongst the creatures of the Dark Continent, they are a merely B-tier threat. That's why Netero had banned all travel to this landmass. But since Netero's death against Miriam, a wrench was thrown into the entire world order due to his son beyond Netero allying himself with the Khakeen Empire, a rising power in the known world who seeks to challenge the V5's authority. Together with Beyond Netero pulling the strings from the background, King Nasubi of Khakeen announces to the world the existence of the Dark Continent and their intent to explore it, with the main goal of expanding Khakeen's influence and power by literally creating an outpost or a colony on the continent. So it's not merely a few hunters being sent there to explore like other nations have done in the past. If you guys want a deeper dive into the goings of the Dark Continent, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Right now though, all you have to know about is the Black Whale, which is a colossal ship capable of carrying 200,000 people. And if you want to be on this ship, well, good luck, because tickets were obtained through a lottery system, with your chance of getting in being tinier than even finding a girlfriend at 1 in 1,300. Yet, this didn't stop the public from going absolutely berserk because of the riches and opportunities that were promised by this new landmass. For example, just look at this rock that can power an entire American home for a whole year, or literal immortality, which means that hunters were quite interested as well, especially since the Zodiacs are the ones tasked with overseeing the entire expedition. But they aren't too thrilled about it, because Isaac Netero, who had been to the continent, knew the immense danger it could pose, with each expedition in the past bringing with them a curse that could destroy the whole known world. Meanwhile, Netero's son Beyond was waiting for his father's death to come out from the shadows so he could lead this expedition, where he has a personal vendetta against the current world order of the V5 and a burning desire to go beyond Netero. With his ambitions perfectly aligned with the Khakeen, it's a match made in heaven. But Beyond's involvement adds a bit of a conflict with the chosen Zodiacs of Netero, who do not up with this man and don't want to work together. The main difference being that the Zodiacs, led by Cheeto, are determined to keep Beyond Netero in check and to prevent any harm from befalling the world due to the expedition. Meanwhile, Beyond seeks not just to explore the Dark Continent, but to claim it, to conquer the unconquerable, and to establish a new world order with him at its helm. His vision is one of power and dominance, where the strong rule over the weak and the impossible is made possible through sheer will and determination. He sees the Dark Continent as the ultimate proving ground, a place where only the strongest will survive and thrive. Beyond kind of used a 500 IQ strategy to beat the Hunter faction that sees the Dark Continent as too dangerous. Basically, the V5 had commissioned the Zodiacs to apprehend him before Beyond and Kakin do more damage to the world order. But instead, bro just phoned Beans and said, "Hey yo, pick me up, put me in one of the good prison cells." As Beyond is detained, Cheeto interviews him, where he confidently says that he will be freed and the Hunters will join this expedition, which ended up going just as he planned, because public pressure to explore the riches of the Dark Continent outweighed the will of the upper echelons of power amongst the V5, where now they are forced to accept Kakin as part of the new V6 organization and sanction their expedition to the Dark Continent. But the Hunter Association will act as a supervisor to all of the actions taken by the expedition team once they reach the landmass. Meanwhile, Beyond will stay detained aboard the Black Whale 1. However, Beyond's team is still acting on their own, with Jing and Pariston both being part of it. While Pariston was already working alongside Beyond, Jing had only just popped into Netero's base to join the expedition, where one of his secondary objectives was to thwart Pariston's plan. Jing reveals that he knows full well what Beyond and Pariston are planning if the Hunter Association doesn't agree to their expedition request, and that is to unleash 5,000 Nen-using Chimera ants to take the Hunter exam and win any type of vote, gaining absolute authority. However, neither Jing's clout nor predicting Pariston helps win the favor of the crew so that Jing can become the number 2 of the expedition. A month or so passes with preparations at full swing, until some 10 hunters arrive and announce that neither Jing nor Pariston would be included in the command chain, as they insist one of them has to lead the expedition. But